Let's now return to the topic of the current escalations in the Middle East between Israel and Iran following the preemptive attacks of Israel against Iran. And for that, we are joined by Dr. Ivonne Tellez, international law expert. Welcome, Dr. Ivonne, to From the South.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. Dr. Ivonne, today marks the fifth day of the ongoing escalation of hostilities between Israel and Iran, following the first strikes of Israel against Iran and, of course, the legitimate response of the Iranian government against Israel. What can you tell us of the context of what is happening right now in that Middle Eastern region?
Okay, well, definitely we're seeing an escalation of the Middle East conflict, and that is bringing more actors to the scene. It doesn't mean that Iran has not been in the spotlight, but this time with a different aim, and that is, of course, to in a way respond accordingly to its right of legitimate defense regarding Israel's attack on the first place. However, this doesn't underscore what has been happening before, and that is, of course, a massive West position, hostile position towards what Iran means and towards what Iran means for the region itself, because of course the threats probably that it implies for how the Western countries see Iran, and the fact that Israel is a direct ally of the United States and Iran has been a long-standing enemy, a non-friend state for the U.S., means that there is an ongoing strategy, and I believe so, behind what we're seeing and the actions in Israel. And that means this hostility that Iran is facing, I think that probably with what we could see, and in face of what President Trump has said to Iran to give it up, and to give up this atomic weapons these nuclear weapons as it's been said. So defines or shows that there is a high probability of the Western allies and directed by the U.S., executed by Israel, to try to deploy Iran's regime. And this is that's what we are probably seeing through Israel's actions. However, it is not very understandable how can Israel manage two or three conflicts at the same time. I'm talking about Gaza, I'm talking about Yemen, and now I'm talking about what it means to enter into military hostilities during a long period of time. So that's also an issue that we have to take into account. I think that probably the strategy of the West and probably the strategy of Israel is to deploy Iran's first and primarily commanders and leaders in order to try to destabilize the regime, because this is not a new conflict. This is an ongoing, and it goes back to at least the first part of the 20th century. And regarding also what has happened after the World War II, and how the definition or the redefinition of the territories in the Middle East came along with this new kind of conflicts, political conflicts, religious conflicts regarding these two states.
Dr. Ivonne, we saw yesterday that U.S. President Donald Trump left abruptly from the G7 summit that was being held in Canada, and while he was doing so, he also provided statements calling on the people of Tehran to evacuate. Do you believe that there could be a possible direct intervention? Because we know that in a way, indirectly, they are supporting Israel both military and politically. But do you believe that it's possible for the U.S. to intervene directly in this conflict, following the historical record that we saw direct intervention from the U.S. in Iraq, in Libya, in these other nations, in Syria, in these other nations that Israel also wanted to target, as they alleged that they were a threat to their existence.
Okay, yes, well, in the line of what I said before, we know that Israel is completely sponsored by the US. Even though when Israel attacked Iran 5 days ago, the US came along saying that they didn't know about the attacks and they like posed a distance between Israel attacks in the first place. But we saw the backup coming afterwards when President Trump was requesting Iran to give up and, of course, telling people to evacuate. However, even though we know the history of the US, and we know this would be a kind of in a way like a proxy war regarding that Israel is the one executing on the territory the actions, and it's the one that's being exposed, and the US is just in the back of the whole scenario. I think that there could be a higher probability that the US comes along because and I think if Iran shows a kind of a weakness or maybe commit some flaws or some probably mistakes. I'm talking about military strategy that may be a possibility that the US will try to get advantage of. However, there's another issue, and that is what is Trump facing inside his own country. We saw what happened during this military parade. We saw and we are aware of what's happening regarding the population of the US and what he's facing inside his country. So I don't know, and this is a question that I just pose, if that could be a kind of a deterrent for the US because of what it's facing inside. And probably that will mean that the US will just stay like a spectator, seeing and sponsoring Israel in the territory, but not getting into the territory itself. I'm not very sure right now what could happen, even though, and I agree with you, of course, we know that the US has not restrained itself for getting into others' conflicts or getting into others' territories. And this could be a good opportunity for the US if they want to deploy Iran's regime. This could be an opportunity that they are waiting for, even though we know that's contrary to international law. We know that's not ethical under international politics. We know how they have behaved, and that's what probably what is lying behind. On the other part of the show, there's Israel itself, Netanyahu by himself, knowing that he is facing very serious accusations from the International Criminal Court regarding the crimes that he's being adjudicated at this time. And we know that he knows that he's facing those. Probably that could also mean, and I heard that coming from some specialists, that maybe Netanyahu in the end knows that he's gonna be facing very serious issues at international tribunals. So that would probably mean that he wants to just get on with all this. With all these actions that he has proposed before, and that means also getting into war and direct opposition with his enemies, maybe because he knows that by the end he's not going to be in power anymore. He probably will be facing something else. And this line that I'm saying at this time is some opinions from specialists that I've heard in Europe, basically, and in the International Criminal Court regarding Netanyahu's actions that cannot be completely understood.
Do you believe, because following all this escalation, we have seen countries of the region, our Muslim Islamic countries, that have presented a united front in support of Iran and calling for the immediate stop of the Israeli attacks and calling to the international community to exercise that pressure to bring a stop to these actions. And also from other countries from the South have also expressed their support for Iran's right to defend themselves following the Israeli aggressions. Do you think that Iran, after the conflict settles, do you think it will have a lot of rebuilding to do, of course, but do you think it will come stronger? Its position in the international arena, both politically and legally, will be reinforced?
Well, I think we're facing very difficult times, and I'm not sure if I'm in a position to announce that. Why am I saying this? Because definitely Iran has the right of legitimate defense. That's a right that every state has when it is under attack or under imminent threat of attack. And that's what has happened over here. So Iran has the right to defend itself. It is what it's doing right now. And this, of course, comes along with a support because we know that what Israel did was an attack under a suspicious because it was suspicious of nuclear activity in Iran, but it didn't have enough evidence to support that internationally. And if it was the case, and just let's imagine that Iran was using nuclear energy for wrongful acts, that is not the role of another state to come as police or to come as a judge or to come as a kind of impose punishments and even violate the prohibition of the use of force in order to just attack another country because it has something going on and probably something wrongful. I mean, in this case, there's not any other state that has that right because there's no state that has more or better rights than other. So in this case, that calls for a support, of course, of Iran. Iran, we know that has the means to defend itself. But in the end, war is war, and that will only end up affecting the people, affecting the population. We know that people are getting displaced by now, people are getting killed by now. So in the end, it will only affect people. Regarding your question, as if Iran will come up stronger or no, probably it will in the face of how Israel is being seen towards the whole international scene, because Israel right now, and I'm going to call it the way it is, it's committing genocide in Gaza. There's enough evidence to support that. Netanyahu is facing claims towards the International Criminal Court regarding crimes against humanity, and Israel has not stopped for almost a year and a half of attacking an unarmed state, unarmed people, killing civilians. So that is, I mean, Israel is not in a good position, in an international position. Israel is being seen as a genocide state. And in that case, if we are comparing Iran towards Israel in the international scenario, Iran will come up, I think, a little bit stronger regarding that. It, in the first place, is defending itself because it was an unprecedented attack. And on the second place, it's towards a state that is already highly questioned in the international scene. So probably that will give more force to the supporters of Iran than what is happening with Israel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ivonne, for your time here from the South and for all your inputs.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
It's always a pleasure, as always.